Hi, welcome to NCP Masterclass. In today's session, we're going to have a look at a past paper that has been issued and completed, and we're going to be looking specifically at how to formulate a driver schedule. Now, we're going to give you a little bit of advice. We're going to have a look at the case study. We're going to extract what information out we need so as we can work out how to do the driver schedule in an exam. Now, today's schedule will give you a little bit of advance warning that what we're going to be covering is it will be a single man journey. It will involve a ferry crossing, and it will also involve interrupting a daily rest. The majority of the time, if you get a question that involves a ferry travel, the examination will be looking at interrupting a daily rest on that crossing. So we'll have a little look at that as well. You've already been sent over the case study and the question paper, so hopefully you've already downloaded that. If you haven't, then pause the video, pop and download it, and then unpause when you come back. Okay, so you should now have the information in front of you. Let's have a little look at what you've got and see where we're going to start from. Now, one bit of advice I can probably give you before you even start is that there are two ways of doing the case study examination, and it really depends on you as to which is going to be the best way. The first way is when you get in the examination, you open your pack, you look at your case study, read the case study through, then you have a look at the question, look at the relevant question, in this case the driver schedule, and then you go back through and read the information again, extracting what you need. Now, to some people that can be a little bit confusing. They get lost in the story and they're taking in all sorts of information that's not relevant for that question. That might be fine for you. But if you get yourself a little bit confused, then the other way of doing it is, instead of opening the case study and reading that case study first, is to open the question paper, have a look at the questions. Just have a quick look through, see what they're asking for. Then take each question individually. Look at the first question, then open your case study and read the case study looking for specific information to do with that question. So in this case, you're going to go through it looking specifically for information relevant to a driver schedule. That may well be easier. The only thing I can suggest is that in our course, we have got past papers at the bottom. Grab a couple. Do one way, do one the other. See what you think, see which one's easier, but whichever way. Okay, so let's have a look at the case study that we've got. And as I said, it's an X case study. So all the information is freely available on the OCR website. I'm going to read out the case study as it was. We've got all of the information that was in the case study. And the idea is that we'll have a look, I'll read it out to you, then we'll pause, give you the opportunity to just have a look and see if you can spot the information that's relevant. Okay, so let's have a little look at the case study. So, information in the case study. I'll read it out for you. Use the information provided in the case study to prepare a single-manned driver schedule for the delivery to Belfast for ABEC. Your schedule must start when the driver begins work at Mackenzie's Derby Operating Centre and end when he has completed the machine installation. Notes: you must show the destination for all driving periods. Tachograph symbols are not acceptable for tachograph modes. Pause the video, have a little look and see if any of that is relevant for a driver schedule. Yeah, pause, unpause, come back in a couple of minutes. Okay, welcome back. So let's have a little look and see what you found. Did you find anything at all? Hopefully you did. So what actually here is relevant? Your schedule must start when the driver begins work at Mackenzie's Derby Operating Centre and end when he has completed the machine installation. This has just given you an indication of the overall journey we're working out. So it starts at the operating centre and ends after the machine has been installed. So we now know the full schedule. Other notes that you will have seen are that you must show the destination for all driving periods. So when you're writing down the activity, as you'll see on the question paper, the third set of boxes across is the activity, you must state where you're driving to. If you don't, you won't get a mark. And also, tachograph symbols are not acceptable. So, in the fourth set of boxes where it says tachograph mode, if you put the symbol, a bed for rest or cross hammers for other work, you're not going to get the mark. You've got to write the mode down. Right, let's have a look at the next part. So, Tom and Sarah Mackenzie are a brother and sister working in partnership, trading as Mackenzie Haulage from premises in Derby that are owned by Tom. Sarah is the nominated transport manager on Mackenzie's standard national operator licence, which authorises 12 vehicles and 2 trailers. Sarah wishes to leave the business to pursue another career. She has agreed to stay on as partner and transport manager until 31st of July 2018, after which Tom will take full control of the business. He has discussed his options for a new business structure from the 1st of August 2018 to be financed from his own resources with no borrowing. Tom intends to expand the business after Sarah has left and wants to operate 15 vehicles and 2 trailers, all owned. Mackenzie currently has over £100,000 in its bank account, which will be shared between Tom and Sarah when she leaves the business. Tom intends to open a new business account with £20,000 and to keep his other funds in a personal saving account. You passed your Certificate of Professional Competence examination in March 2018, and you have also been nominated as Mackenzie's Transport Manager. You started work with Mackenzie on Monday of this week. Again, what information in there is relevant specifically to a driver schedule? Pause the video, have a look, highlight what you think, come back in a few seconds. Welcome back. So what did you find? Hopefully you found absolutely nothing on that page apart from one bit, that Mackenzie's premises are in Derby. So where do the vehicles leave from? They're going to leave from the operating centre in Derby. So that is the only reference in that bit that is of any use. All the rest of it, not for this question. That's all for another question. Let's have a look at the next bit. So here we have a graph which tells us the vehicles that Mackenzie's have got, what their weight is, the specifications, number of tyres, purchase price excluding tyres, expected residual value, curbside weight, and how many vehicles of each type they've got. Is any of that information of use for a driver schedule? Pause, have a little look, come back in a second. Right, what have we found on this one? Nothing. There is no relevance at all to the driver schedule. None of this is of any use to this question whatsoever. So, look at the next one then. The 3 tractor units are used daily, mainly for traction only delivery of customers' own trailers. The 2 Mackenzie trailers are only used occasionally for general haulage. These trailers are 12 years old and cover a minimal annual mileage. The rigid goods vehicles are used daily, also for general haulage. The vehicles are purchased new and replaced after 3 years. The tail lifts are used for loading goods and as a means of entry and exit to or from vehicle bodies by drivers and loading staff. Vehicles are each utilised for an average of 280 days annually, and the trailers are each used for an average of 80 days annually. In addition to the 2 owned trailers, there is often a customer trailer parked overnight at Mackenzie's operating centre in Derby. Company policies. Mackenzie's company policy document states that all driver breaks must be scheduled to be taken as late as legally possible and for the shortest possible time. Drivers must be scheduled to complete a 15-minute walk-around check of the vehicle at the beginning of every shift. Let's have a little look through that, see what information we can find. It's deliberately related to the question we're dealing with, the driver schedule. Pause it, come back in a second. What did we find this time? A couple of bits that will definitely be of use. At the bottom in the company policies, all driver breaks must be scheduled to be taken as late as legally possible and for the shortest possible time. It may well be that if we've got a choice of how we can display our breaks, that we have to look and see, are we complying with this statement, that they're taken as late as legally possible and for the shortest possible time. And all drivers must be scheduled to complete a 15-minute walk-around check of the vehicle at the beginning of every shift. Now we already know that this schedule involves a ferry, and usually if the ferry journey is of a reasonable amount of time, it's going to involve a daily rest. So have a look and make sure, have we got 2 shifts here? We're going to have to do 2 walk round checks. Yeah, just bear that one in mind. Okay, so looking at the next bit then. ABEC Manufacturing is currently one of Mackenzie's customers and is based in Castle Donington, 32 kilometres from Mackenzie's operating centre. ABEC manufactures specialist machinery which requires skilled handling and installation. ABEC staff have asked Tom to provide costings and schedules for a new contract that they are negotiating. This involves the delivery and installation of new machines to sites in London, Bristol, Worcester, Nottingham, Leeds, Warrington, Preston, Sunderland, Belfast and Dublin. Apart from Belfast, these are all sites to which your drivers deliver regularly for ABEC. Again, have a look through, highlight what you think is relevant for the driver schedule question, pause it, come back in a minute. So, hopefully you've found one bit on this, and that is that the customer is based in Castle Donington, which is 32 kilometres from Mackenzie's operating centre. None of the other information really affects the driver's schedule. The bit at the bottom gives us a little bit of a background that actually the company is delivering to all of the other places apart from Belfast. So we know that this schedule is going to be about Belfast, but they'll tell us that in the question anyway. So not really relevant. So Castle Donington, 32 kilometres from Mackenzie's operating centre. Hopefully you mark that one. Next bit, Belfast delivery. ABEC has been asked for a delivery schedule and costings for the Belfast journey to be sent to its office by Tuesday of next week. Tom has provided the following information. The machine to be delivered to Belfast will be packaged in 4 parts, each weighing 1,000 kilograms. The average speed to be used for the whole journey is 64 kilometres per hour. The vehicle must be scheduled to leave Mackenzie's depot in Derby at the latest possible time and to arrive at Belfast at the earliest possible time. Loaded at ABEC Castle Donington must start at 9 o'clock in the morning and will take 1 hour driver assisting. The distance between Castle Donington and Stranraer is 480 kilometres. The Stranraer to Larne ferry crossing, sailing at 9 o'clock in the evening, 2100 hours, will be used, and a cabin is provided on board the ferry and parking is available at both ports. Ferry embarkation and disembarkation each take 15 minutes to be scheduled as driving time. The ferry arrives in Larne, which is 32 kilometres from the Belfast delivery site, at 11 o'clock at night, 2300 hours. Delivery and installation in Belfast must start at 7 o'clock in the morning and will take 4 hours driver to assist. Mackenzie's vehicle will call at Castle Donington on the return journey to deliver reusable packaging from the machine and paperwork before returning to its operating centre. Have a little look through, highlight what is relevant for our driving schedule, pause, and we'll go through it in a second. Okie dokie, let's have a little look then what we found. So, the first line, machine to be delivered to Belfast, will be packaged in 4 parts, each weighing 1,000 kilograms. Absolutely nothing to do with the driver schedule. That may well come in another question, and as it happens it did, but nothing to do with this. By the way, just while we're here talking about 1,000 kilograms, bear in mind that 1,000 kilograms equals 1 tonne, so you might see it displayed in either way. Average speed to be used for the whole journey, 64 kilometres per hour. That is going to be to do with the driver schedule. Average speed is always used in the driver schedule. The vehicle must be scheduled to leave Mackenzie's depot in Derby at the latest possible time and to arrive at Belfast at the earliest possible time. So we're now looking at the schedule as a whole, and they're basically telling us that if you don't get it to leave as late as possible and arrive as early as possible, you're not going to get the marks. So that's sort of set an idea of where we're going with this. Loading at ABEC Castle Donington must start at 9 o'clock and will take 1 hour driver assisting. That's the first specific time they've given us. So we now have a point in our schedule of 9 o'clock where we've got to work towards. The distance between Castle Donington and Stranraer is 480 kilometres. So we're going to need to know that distance. The Stranraer to Larne ferry crossing sails at 9 o'clock in the evening, 2100 hours. It's another time we've got to hit. If we don't hit that time, then we're not going to get our marks. And if we're after 9 o'clock, we're going to get wet, aren't we? Because the ferry's going to have gone. A cabin is provided on board the ferry and parking is available at both ports. Now, to me, that gives a clear indication that this schedule is looking at a daily rest which is being interrupted. So remember, this is information that you will have learnt on the course, in that a daily rest, which has got to be 11 hours, it's got to be a regular 11-hour daily rest, can be interrupted on no more than 2 occasions and for no more than an hour in maximum, in total time. So they're going to be looking at us potentially starting the daily rest, interrupting it to board the ferry, continuing with the daily rest on the ferry, interrupting it to disembark, and then continuing with our daily rest. The idea is that they've given us the biggest clue in that there is parking available at both ports. So they're going to be looking at us parking up at both ends of the journey. Ferry embarkation and disembarkation each takes 15 minutes. And bear in mind, it says there that this is going to be scheduled as driving time, so it's given us our tachograph mode for when we're doing that. The ferry arrives in Larne at 2300 hours, 11 o'clock at night, and it's told us that the Belfast delivery site is 32 kilometres from Larne, where the ferry comes in. So we're going to need that. Delivery and installation in Belfast must start at 7 o'clock in the morning and will take 4 hours, driver to assist. So another time that we've got to put into our schedule at 7 o'clock, and the delivery part will start at 7. Another time to hit. Mackenzie's vehicle will call at Castle Donington on the return journey to deliver reusable packaging from the machine and paperwork before returning to its operating centre. That's no good for the driver schedule. We don't need to know that, because right at the beginning it told us that the schedule is going to finish when we have finished installing the machine. So that last line is of no use to us whatsoever. So hopefully you got all those. If you didn't, just mark them off so you can see for reference later on. Next bit, cost information for the Belfast delivery. Tom has told you that the costings must include 2 days utilisation of the vehicle and 2 days utilisation of the driver, and must be based on the information in the table below. It's given us the insurance, cost per tyre, average tyre life, fuel price, consumption, maintenance costs, ferry costs and euro exchange rate. Any of that of relevance for our driver schedule? Have a quick look, pause, have a quick look and then come back. So what did we find on this one? Absolutely nothing. It's all relevant to costing a journey, but we're not looking at costing a journey, we're looking at the driver schedule, and none of that was anything to do with the driver schedule. Next bit. Proposed work. Tom has been asked about the storage and distribution of 3,000 litre loads of a flammable liquid in intermediate bulk containers, IBCs, for a new customer. He's been told that the consignments will fall within the scope of regulations covering the carriage of such goods. Tom has called a meeting to discuss this and other issues. Drivers have all been provided with the following equipment: protective gloves, high-vis jackets and bibs, safety boots, hard hat, personal first aid kit, 2 kilogram dry powder fire extinguisher, and all vehicles have a holder fitted in the cab for this. Have a look and see if any of that is going to affect our driver schedule. Pause me, have a look, highlight and come back. Right, so any of that of any use? No, none of it. Different job, something totally different. So nothing to do with the driver schedule to Belfast that we're looking at. So now we've gathered all the information. We've displayed it on here in 2 sections on one page so as it makes it easier. On the left hand side, all the information that we've highlighted, we've put down. On the right hand side is a copy of the grid that's in the question paper that we're going to fill in. This should hopefully make it a little bit easier for us to follow as we go through. So what's the first thing we're going to do? Well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to work out what our schedule entails. We already know that the schedule starts at the operating centre in Derby, and we know that the schedule is going to finish when we finish the installation in Belfast. But what do we do in between? So we need to have a little look through, and we need to pick out the journey. So, first of all, we know that we're starting at Derby. We know we're starting at the operating centre. We're going to have to go to our customer, we're going to have to pick the goods up. So we're going to be going across to Castle Donington. So we can write down operating centre, underneath Castle Donington. Where do we go from Castle Donington? Well, from Castle Donington, we go straight down to the ferry in Stranraer. So we can put underneath Stranraer or ferry. We're then going to cross the water, and when we get the other side to Larne, the case study tells us that when it arrives in Larne, it's 32 kilometres from Belfast delivery site. So we're going to go straight to the Belfast delivery site for our delivery and installation. So now we've got our route worked out. We've got operating centre, Castle Donington for the goods, Stranraer for the ferry, over the water to Larne, and from Larne to Belfast. Now we know we're not going to miss any bits out. Where do we start? All quite confusing, isn't it? Well, we start at the earliest time that has been given us that is a definite, and that is our 9 o'clock. We've got a load at Castle Donington at 9 o'clock, start at 9 o'clock. So that is going to be our starting point. So we can fill that into the grid now. So we can start with our first activity that we know of, which is going to be the drive to Castle Donington. And we know that we've got to get to Castle Donington for 9 o'clock. So our finish time for that activity will be 9 o'clock. The tacho mode will obviously be driving. How do we know how long it's going to take us to get to Castle Donington? The case study has told us it's 32 kilometres. It's also told us that our average speed is 64 kilometres. So we can quite easily work that out. We take the kilometres that we're travelling, 32, we divide it by the average speed, our 64, and the calculator will tell us 0.5. What does that 0.5 represent? Well, anything to the left before the decimal point are complete hours. Anything to the right after the decimal point is a fraction of an hour. And in this case, it's 0.5, which is half. So our driving time is going to be half an hour or 30 minutes. So we can now finish off that line because we know that if we're going to finish at 9 o'clock our driving, we must have started at 8:30. Given a little bit of a hint here in that we've populated this second down, so that obviously means we're expecting to do something first. And we are, aren't we? Because when we first start driving, we don't just roll up at work and jump in our vehicle and off we go. Well, what do we have to do? We've got to do a walk round check, haven't we? And the case study has already told us that right at the top, drivers must be scheduled to complete a 15-minute walk round check of the vehicle at the beginning of every shift. So we now know we can incorporate that one into our schedule. Our finish time for the activity is going to be 8:30 because that's when we start working, we start driving, apologies. So our walk round check finishes at 8:30. We're going to display the tacho mode as other work because it has to be recorded on the tachograph card. And 15 minutes means we're going to start at 8:15. So we've now got the first part of our schedule in. 8:15, start your walk round check until 8:30 because it says 15 minutes. Tacho mode, other work. Start driving at 8:30 to Castle Donington. There for 9 o'clock, half an hour driving time. And again, the tachograph is going to be driving. What do we do then? Case study again tells us that the next step is loading at ABEC Castle Donington, which must start at 9 o'clock. So that's immediately after our driving period and will take 1 hour driver assisting. So our next line, we know we're starting at 9 o'clock. We know that we are loading. It says it's going to be an hour, so that takes us to 10 o'clock. And because we're actually doing some work, our tacho mode again is going to be other work. So we've now got the vehicle loaded, we're ready to roll. What's the next part of the route that we worked out? It was driving down to the ferry, wasn't it, to Stranraer. How far is Stranraer? The case study tells us 480 kilometres. So we need to work out how long it's going to take us to get from Castle Donington, from the customers, down to the ferry. Same as we worked out earlier on, 480 kilometres. So the distance that we're travelling, divided by the average speed, which is 64 kilometres. If you do that on the calculator, that will come out at 7.5. So remember what I said, the bit before the decimal point is complete hours, so that's 7 complete hours. And the bit after the decimal point is 0.5, is half. So we're looking at 7.5 hours. So we jump in a truck, off we go. We can drive, can't we, for 7.5 hours down to the ferry? No, we can't, can we? Obviously, bit of past experience or learning the information in the course, you know that after 4.5 hours of driving time or cumulative driving time, you must take a 45-minute driver break. So, can we just jump in a vehicle and drive 4.5 hours then before taking a break? No, we can't, can we? We have to bear in mind we've already driven half an hour, 8:30 to 9 o'clock. So we've only got 4 hours left of our driving time before we need to take a 45-minute break. So, 10 o'clock, we're going to jump in our vehicle and we're going to drive 4 hours. 10 o'clock, we're going to drive towards Stranraer. We are going to be stopping at 2 o'clock, so 4 hours, and our tacho mode is obviously going to be driving again. So just to recap that, we have a 4-hour driving period plus the half hour we've already driven before we started loading. So we've got 4.5 hours cumulative driving. We now need to be taking a break. So that's going to be our next line, isn't it? We've stopped at 2 o'clock. We're now going to take a 45-minute break from driving. So 2 o'clock until 2:45, and our tacho mode is going to be break. Once we've had our 45 minutes rest, we've wiped the slate clean, we can then carry on driving for up to 4.5 hours. And in actual practice, we don't need to drive for 4.5 hours because we're going to hit Stranraer before we have driven another 4.5. We only had 7.5 hours to drive that we needed to drive. We've just driven 4 hours of that, so we've only got 3.5 hours left to drive. So we can do that in one go. We can start at 14:45, drive to Stranraer. We'll arrive at Stranraer at 18:15, and our tacho mode was going to be driving. Now, what does 18:15 relate to in our schedule? Well, the next time that we've been given for the schedule is 9 o'clock. Ferry goes at 9 o'clock. It's only 18:15. So, did say earlier on, didn't I, that this gives us a clear indication that we're going to take a daily rest, and we're going to interrupt that daily rest to board and disembark the ferry. So we can start our daily rest now at 18:15. But does that daily rest go all the way through until 9 o'clock when the ferry goes? It doesn't, does it? Have a look in the schedule. It tells us ferry embarkation and disembarkation each takes 15 minutes to be scheduled as driving time. So we've got to bear in mind that if we start our daily rest now, we have to stop 15 minutes before the ferry leaves to embark. And this will be our first interruption of the daily rest, which is permissible. So our next line, we're going to wait at Stranraer for the ferry. We're going to put it as daily rest because we're going to start our daily rest. Bearing in mind, if we're going to interrupt it, it's got to be an 11-hour regular daily rest that we're interrupting. We're going to stop at 20:45 because that is when we're going to have to start our boarding, our embarkation onto the ferry. So the next line is going to be 20:45, embark the ferry, 15 minutes, remember, to 2100. And our tacho mode, it has told us here to be scheduled as driving time. So 2045 to 2100, embark the ferry, driving time. We're now on the ferry. What can we do now we're on the ferry? Well, it leaves at 9 o'clock. The ferry crossing, incorporating the balance of our daily rest, 11 o'clock. Only 2 hours crossing, but that will go again towards our daily rest. So that's fine. When we get to the other end though, what have we got to do? We've got to get off the ferry. And again, the schedule tells us ferry disembarkation is 15 minutes. So 11 o'clock to 11:15, we're going to disembark. And again, it tells us that this has got to be scheduled as driving time. So we've now got off the ferry. The only problem is that we have not had all our daily rest. So when we get off the ferry, and it does tell us that there is parking available at both ports, so we can get off the ferry, pull up straight away, and we can continue our daily rest. So our next line is going to be to complete that daily rest that we need to complete. We're going to start it at 23:15, continue our daily rest until 5:45, and that will go down in our tacho mode again as rest, daily rest. Now if you look there, we have had our 11-hour daily rest period, and we have interrupted it twice, once to embark, once to disembark. Fits in within the rules and regulations absolutely perfectly. 5:45, we're awake, we're ready to start again, we've had our 11 hours rest. What's going to be the next thing that we do? Well, we can just jump in our vehicle and we can drive off down to Belfast, can't we? No, something a lot of people forget. The schedule told us at the beginning, 15-minute walk round check of the vehicle at the beginning of every shift. You've just had a daily rest. You are now starting the next shift. So before you go anywhere, you must take another 15-minute daily walk round check. So 5:45, we're going to do a walk round check until 6 o'clock. And again, this must be recorded on your tachograph card, so that will go down as other work. So once we've finished our daily walk round check, we can then drive off down to Belfast. Again, how far is Belfast? 32 kilometres from the ferry. We all worked out this calculation earlier on because it's the same details, but just in case, we know it's 32 kilometres. We know it's 64 kilometres per hour average, so divide the 32 by the 64, again will give you 0.5, so 30 minutes. So we can populate the next line in our schedule. Once we've finished the walk round check at 6 o'clock, we can put it in as 6 o'clock starting, drive into Belfast, which is going to be half an hour. We're going to arrive at Belfast at 6:30, and again our tacho mode is of course going to be driving. Any other information there that we need to make sure that we hit? Well, yeah, it did tell us that delivery and installation must start at 7 o'clock. So we're now there, we're at Belfast. We're there half an hour earlier. So we've got to account for that half an hour because we can't start until 7 o'clock. So our next line, we're going to populate as starting at 6:30, and we're going to wait. Yeah, we're going to wait for somebody to come and let us in. So 6:30 to 7 we'll be waiting. And what about the tacho mode? Well, we're going to put the tacho mode down as POA, period of availability. We already knew from the schedule. We'd worked this out as a company before we've even underdone the journey. So it's a waiting period that we know about in advance. We knew weeks ago when we worked out this schedule, before we actually did the journey, that there's going to be half an hour waiting. So we can put it down as POA, period of availability. Be careful on that because it's unlikely the examiner would accept break in this instance, because it is a period of availability because we know about it in advance. So 7 o'clock, they come and rattle on your door, wake you up because you've probably just had another half hour's kit, come and rattle on your door and tell you that you can now come on site. So we can put in the next bit, which will be starting at 7 o'clock, and it tells us that delivery and installation must start at 7 and will take 4 hours driver to assist. So our activity is going to be unload and install. It's going to be until 11 o'clock, and our taco mode again is going to be other work because we're having to assist. Now that's where we're going to end the schedule, because right at the beginning we established that the schedule starts at the operating centre in Derby and finishes after you've installed the machine. So we now have completed the driver schedule. Couple of bits to remember. Make sure you have read all the information and that you've picked all the information out. Missing just one little bit, one little snippet of information could alter this. Have a quick look, check back and see, have you met all the criteria that has been asked? Have you used driving symbols? No, you haven't. That's good. Have you taken breaks as late as possible and for the shortest amount of time? Yes, you have. Have you started the schedule at the latest time that you possibly can? And have you arrived at Belfast at the earliest time you possibly can? Yes, you can. So you've met all the criteria that has been asked for in the question. When you've done it, pop back through and quickly look again in the case study to make sure that there is not something vital that you have missed. Absolutely crucial. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. We've now worked out how we can take a case study with lots of information in and just pick out the bits and pieces that we need to answer the question in general. Make sure that you are aware of all the information in there, because missing one little snippet could alter the whole schedule. Check out our other videos. We've got other videos on different types of driver schedules, on costings and other important aspects of the exam. Please bear in mind that we can give you all the support that we possibly can, and will give you all the support that we possibly can. Other case studies, there are case studies in the course. Fill them in, have a go at them, send them in to online support. We'll mark them. We'll see how close you would have been to a pass, and we'll give you constructive feedback on how to adapt your style, how to get information out of the case study, and how to answer the questions the way the examiners want. Okay, thanks very much. See you all again soon, and best of luck in your exam.